this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 8 legal English expressions to talk about the 2022 case of Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. So if you are a legal professional or just someone who is interested in court cases and human nature and why people do what they do, keep watching to learn some useful English vocabulary that comes up often in the news and that can help you to talk about these topics. So if you are new here, hello, my name is Ruth. I am an English language teacher originally from Ireland and based in Belgium and going to be soon moving to France. I run English for Change, helping you build a confident voice in English so that you can achieve your dreams and goals in English with better English. And I particularly help legal professionals and other business professionals to make a true impact in the work they do with better English. I myself have a background in law and policy. I have a master's in international human rights law. So I'm looking forward to sharing with you my views on this case and also some of the key English vocabulary that you can use to talk about this case. So just to give you a bit of background about this case. In the English world anyway, it was something that you could not escape from this summer. It was in the news everywhere. I myself didn't follow it very closely, but as I said, unless you were living under a rock, as we say in English, it was very hard to escape this case. And the whole court case was live streamed. That is something that they do in the US. They do show video footage of the court case. And so it makes it very open and very interesting to see the whole trial and testimonies, and you get a really good feel for the American justice system. So as I was doing some research for this case, it was very hard to find an easy, straightforward summary because it's such a complicated history with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. They were formally married and they divorced after a few months. And the issue arose when Amber Heard in 2018, she wrote a news article where she opened up about domestic abuse and violence in her marriage. She did not mention Johnny Depp, but it was very clear who this person was. She alleged that the actor had hit her on a number of occasions, and she even presented video footage of some of the violent attacks. So with this article, Johnny Depp's reputation was severely damaged. He was dropped from his role in the Pirates of the Caribbean, and he received a lot of backlash in the media over these reports from his former wife of violent attacks and domestic abuse. So there he launched a defamation suit against Amber Heard, his former wife. And if you're a legal professional, you will know what defamation is, but it really is a serious allegation of damaging someone's reputation, often with media reports or broadcasting information that would damage someone's reputation. So there were a few cases between 2018 and this year, but the 2022 case was the big one. And it ran for over 6 weeks during this summer. So Depp filed a $50 million defamation case against Heard, and he presented evidence that he was the one on the receiving end of the abuse, not the other way around. And actually, after 6 weeks of hearing evidence, the jury unanimously found that they could not substantiate Heard's allegations of abuse, and so they awarded Johnny Depp $10 million in damages. And also to make matters more complicated, Heard had also countersued against Depp. She said that she was only violent towards Depp because of self-defense, but she did not receive any punitive damages. So yeah, there is a summary of the case. And what I really want to teach you are not the basic legal expressions, but actually the English expressions that you can use to talk about this court case, but also to talk about things in general. It will help you to speak more naturally, just like native English speakers. And all of these examples are taken from news reports and headlines. So the English expressions that we're going to be using are phrasal verbs. And if you don't know what a phrasal verb is, it is basically a verb plus one or two particles. A good example of one could be get up, I get up in the morning, or look after, I look after my baby sister. And phrasal verbs are really important because they are extremely common in informal English, and sometimes it can be hard to guess their meaning. And even in these news articles and quite formal legal reports, these phrasal verbs are used a lot. We are going to look at 8 of them, 4 to look at the overall case, and 4 more that appear in Amber Heard's statement at the end of the case. So let's get into the court summary with 4 phrasal verbs, and I'm going to break it down with you. So I'm going to read the summary now. So listen out for the 4 phrasal verbs that are featured here. After the world heard the final arguments from both sides, the jury was in charge of weighing up the truth. Amber Heard's legal team summed up their defense for the court. The jury in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation trial ruled in favor of Johnny Depp, finding that a Washington Post editorial she wrote defamed her former husband. Amber Heard will need to pay $10.35 million in damages to Depp, but her legal team states that she absolutely cannot pay up for the full amount. Okay, do you find the 4 phrasal verbs in this summary? So let's look at the first one. Okay, so after the world heard the final arguments, the jury was in charge of weighing up the truth. So to weigh up, you have the weight and weighing up. It's this idea of weighing up to balance all the evidence. Another example you could use for weighing up is we weighed up the pros and cons before it made a decision. Or in this example, the jury was in charge of weighing up the truth. So it's a really good one for legal English, but also in general, you hear it a lot in news articles. And when you're trying to reach an important decision, you weigh up evidence, the pros and cons. Okay, and then the second sentence here is Amber Heard's legal team summed up their defense for the court. So to sum up, we can think of the verb to summarize. It's quite similar. So to sum up is to give the main point of something in a few words. So I was trying at the beginning to sum up the court case, trying my best because it's a very complicated one. And so an example you could give is to finish the meeting, we summed up all the key points. Or the example just here, Amber Heard's legal team summed up their defense for the court. So you notice here that in a phrasal verb, the preposition is very important. If you remove the preposition, it's not going to make any sense. So you really need to learn the whole expression together. A phrasal verb is just another English expression that needs to be learned completely. Okay, the next sentence, the jury in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation trial has ruled in favor of Johnny Depp, finding that a Washington Post editorial she wrote defamed her former husband. So to rule in favor of, against, or also to find in favor of or against. It's a really important one for legal English. It means to make a judicial decision. And look at the way it's formed here. Another example could be the court has found in favor of the defense in this case. So in favor of someone in something. In favor of the person for this case, for example. The other one in the summary, they have ruled in favor of Johnny Depp. So those are the 4 phrasal verbs that come up in my little summary of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case. And now I want to move on to reading the statement that Amber Heard gave at the conclusion of the case. So here we go. The disappointment I feel today is beyond words. I'm heartbroken that the mountain of evidence still was not enough to stand up to the disproportionate power, influence, and sway of my ex-husband, Heard said. I'm even more disappointed with what this verdict means for other women. It's a setback. It sets back the clock to a time when a woman who spoke up and spoke out could be publicly humiliated. It sets back the idea that violence against women is to be taken seriously. So, did you notice the 4 phrasal verbs in this statement? It's a really good example here to see how common phrasal verbs are in this formal statement that Amber Heard gives at the end of the trial. She uses so many of them, and it's just a very natural way of speaking. I think it's very concrete as well in English, although when you're learning English, you might feel really strange at first. So it's good to see lots of different examples and to practice. So the first one, to stand up to. This is something that I've definitely taught more than a few occasions, and most recently I've taught it in my YouTube video, Phrasal Verb Story, Let's Talk About Discrimination in Works. I would highly recommend you check it out here. So to stand up to means to defend yourself against a powerful person or organization when they treat you unfairly. So she's talking about standing up to her ex-husband here. So she was giving that idea of being weaker, more vulnerable than her husband. And in this case, she felt that she was standing up to him. Now, the next phrasal verb is to set back, and she uses this about 3 times in the statement. She uses it as a noun first, it's a setback, and then she says it sets back the clock, and also it sets back the idea. So to set back is to delay the progress of someone or something. So when something is a setback, it's something that's delaying you. It's usually some kind of challenge. Oh, this launch wasn't successful. It's a bit of a setback, but we can continue and be more successful next time. Perhaps a good synonym is almost like a failure, or at least it is a delay in progress. So you could say, failing this exam, that was a bit of a setback. I'm not going to allow it to get to me, and I'm going to try again. So yeah, that idea of setback, and it's very interesting that she uses it 3 times in her statement because it very well articulates what she wants to say. It's quite nuanced. Instead of saying a failure, it's a little bit more subtle. And the next 2 phrasal verbs, she says to speak up. And to speak up is to express your opinion, and it's also to just speak at a louder volume. So when women speak up about domestic violence like they have in the Me Too movement in the last few years, and Amber Heard's editorial was indeed part of that Me Too movement. And also she uses to speak out in the same sentence, to speak up and to speak out against domestic violence. To speak out is to voice your opinion about something, especially in relation to an injustice or something a legal matter. So yeah, to speak up and to speak out. They do have a slightly different meaning, and they both go quite well together. So just to revise all of the phrasal verb that we have listened to today, we had to weigh up, to sum up, to rule in favor of, and to pay up. So to weigh up, sum up, pay up. Those 3 are with up, and I would advise you to learn them together. It can be confusing, but I would say it's a good way to learn the same prepositions together. So to weigh up, sum up, and pay up, and then rule in favor of, for, or against is a little bit different. And then the 4 from her statement are to stand up to set back, to speak up, and to speak out. Now, to speak up and to speak out, they're the same verb but different prepositions. Can be really confusing to try to remember them, but if you can associate them with perhaps an image, like to speak up, you can think of a volume increasing, going up. And out is more this kind of motion, so speaking out, trying to get this injustice out of you. So any way that you can learn or memorize it like that would really help. But of course, you don't always need to use these phrasal verbs. It is enough to understand them. And I think that's the big thing about phrasal verbs. It's a really great way to understand native speakers more because we use them all the time. As you can see in that short statement from Amber Heard, it's really great that you can fully define them, fully understand what exactly she means in these phrasal verbs. I hope this video is helpful. If you like this video, please give it a like and perhaps share it with a friend or colleague that might benefit from this video. And also don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see future videos like this again. I'd love to hear in the comments as well what kind of video topics you would like. Would you like more videos like this, looking at court cases or legal English expressions? Would you like more phrasal verb videos? Let me know, I'd love to hear. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I will talk to you in the next one.